Welcome to Peculiar Tales, the show where we dive into the stranger things in history, urban legends, ghost stories, and anything else we find, well, peculiar. I'm Christy.
And I'm Dawn. Our tale today will start in 1817 and does not seem to have an ending. A piece of land that has seen everything from scholars, artists, funeral home directors, and now fine dining at its best. There is a history to this site that has led to infamous tales of paranormal experiences. Join us while we tell the tales of a haunted East Coast location. Construction began in 1817. A school was being built so that the parishioners of the time from St. Paul's Church of England could educate children in religion as well as social studies. The school was for all types of children, from different social standings or even religious beliefs. However, if any child could not afford proper clothing or school supplies that were needed, these items were given for free. This made it the first free school in Canada. The construction ended in 1818, and the school was simply named National School. Documentation shows that the school introduced what is called the Madras system of teaching. Scholars came and helped the schoolmasters teach everything from reading, learning French, geography, math, and that's just to name a few. It seems ordinary to us now to be taught all these things, but back then, this was new.
It gets a bit confusing on facts with the changeover from the National School to an art school. The best we can decipher is that Anna Leowens took over, changing the school into a school for the arts. Anna is said to be the inspiration to the movie The King and I, because she was known as the tutor of the children of Siam. She named the institution the Halifax Victorian School of Art. Her main goal was to educate and promote art education. For 3 years, the principal was Arthur Lismere. He was renowned and was a member of the Group of Seven. Through him and Anna, the school had prominent artists come to give lectures and encourage Canadian-style art. When the school moved to another location, again, to the best we can tell, things took a bit of a dark turn.
It is important to note that during the next 2 major events that the building seen, it was, from what we understand, still owned by Anna Leowens, and that the Snow Company undertakers were close by at a different location. It wasn't until later years that the building changed ownerships again and turned into a funeral home. In 1912, the tragedy of the Titanic happened. The Snow family, from what has been said, acquired the building to help by turning it into a mortuary. About 300 bodies that were recovered from the RMS Titanic were brought to this mortuary and others like it. Many of the bodies had been found wearing life jackets, and some still holding onto personal items. It has been described that there were calm clusters of bodies floating eerily days after the sinking took place. There were soldiers that said that this was unnervingly quiet because the bodies were drifting in near perfect stillness.
Due to the cold temperatures of the Atlantic, the victims of the Titanic, it is said, looked like they were peacefully sleeping. Once at the mortuary, the bodies were tagged and numbered, and if any belongings were there, they too were documented. Pictures of the bodies were taken. Documentation showed that if the bodies were identified, they were returned to families, and for the ones that were not identified, they were buried in cemeteries in Halifax. Accounts of the mortuary rooms included things like it smelled like seawater and embalming chemicals, and that the room didn't feel empty. The energy felt occupied. Many workers said they felt like they were being watched. Others refused to work alone.
Fast forward to 1917, just 5 years later, and the building saw more devastation again. This time, it was a Halifax harbor explosion. In the AM hours of December 6, 1917, a French cargo ship was hit by a Norwegian vessel in the Halifax harbor. The French cargo ship had explosives on board, and when it caught fire, it exploded. This explosion caused over 1,700 deaths and about 9,000 people injured. Documentation tells us that this explosion was the largest man-made explosion of the time. Everything that was in an 800-meter radius was destroyed, including the community of Richmond. The shock wave that came demolished the buildings, grounded vessels, trees were broken into, and iron was bent. There were fragments of the French cargo ship and the Norwegian vessel 4 kilometers. Along with everything else, a tsunami was created and took out another community. It did not take long for help to start. Hospitals filled up, trains came from neighboring provinces, and later from the United States and central Canada. They made temporary shelters for those left homeless, and the Snow family once again answered the call for help.
The Snow Company undertakers worked nearly non-stop. The Argyle Street location is said to have housed the dead and the coffins. Outside, there were coffins in front of the Snow Company. The building was just too small for the bodies that had to be taken care of. The coffins had to be stacked outside the mortuary. There was a picture that went worldwide, showing the front of the building with these stacks of caskets. The picture has said to be a defining visual of the explosive tragedy. There are records that show that the funeral company carried out an outstanding numbers of funerals daily. At times, it was 30 to 40. In 1975, the funeral company moved their location and sold the building to what is now known as the Five Fishermen Restaurant. Some may think this is the end of the tale of the building. However, in truth, there is so much more to this land.
The location is now not only a fine dining hotspot, but also a place that the paranormal seem to call home. There are many tales of the hauntings here. These are a few of them. There have been claims that while a worker was closing one night, they made their way to a grand staircase when the worker claimed that a gray, misty-like figure started to descend, but then it evaporated. This apparition is now known as the Gray Man.
There have been so many reports of odd little things happening in the restaurant that a lot of the workers have reported things like glasses falling off the shelves by themselves, and silverware has been said to move and then fall to the floor by itself as well. One tale tells that a server was closing for the shift and doing the last checks of the dining room and salad bar when he heard what sounded like a swinging door moving. He went quickly, turned around, and could see that the swinging door just stopped. When the server looked into this more, it was discovered that no one else was there. If you listen closely, you might hear of people saying that there are moments that they feel like they have walked through a cold spot, even though it could be a warm night. Some say that they get the chills or even hear voices that cannot be accounted for. This leads us to our next tale. There was a claim that in the private dining area of the restaurant, a worker had passed by this room when closing off the lights for the night. He heard a man and a woman arguing. No big deal, right? Well, when the room was entered, no one was in there. It was empty.
One day before opening, the salad bar was being filled. To do this task, items had to be brought in in multiple trips on trays. On one of the rounds, it was heard by the worker an extremely loud crash. When he was able to go and see what it was, it has been claimed that an ashtray fell and broke. When the worker stood up, his face was in a mirror and he could see the back of an old man with long gray hair and a black coat. The worker said the clothing had to have been from a different time. He quickly turned around to see who else was there because he was supposed to be the only one. When he turned around, no one was there, and there was nothing in the mirror anymore.
There's a lot to unpack here because so much happened.
Yeah. So after hearing everything, do you think that the tales of the Argyle Street location are something that has come about because of the tragedies that took place in Halifax, or just because of this property?
I think the tragedies lead to it. If you're looking at a place that has had so much death and things like this happening, it's bound to bring some sort of energy.
Yeah, I agree with you because you have two major tragedies,
Mm-hmm.
so much death,
Yes.
and tragic death, not just
Yeah.
these are tragedies.
Yeah.
And to have that energy, that raw energy,
Mm-hmm.
that is just there.
Mm-hmm. Well, even talking about the Titanic and people being so cold that they just look like they're sleeping in clusters of people floating in the water. That eerie silence,
Yeah,
that's tragic and terrifying all at the same time.
it's so sad, because these people, they had families, and everybody around the world that had families on that ship were waiting to hear.
Right.
And it couldn't have been easy on any God-given level to be there helping.
No.
No. So the Snow family, by the time the Titanic came and this tragedy happened, the Snow family had already been established as funeral directors and
Mm-hmm.
undertakers for a few generations at this point.
Right.
So they really took the reins on this. And for a while, as they were recovering the people, the victims, that they were doing it on a ship,
Mm-hmm.
but then it just got to be so much. So to be one of those people who are recovering,
Yeah.
that would be traumatic.
Absolutely.
That wouldn't be easy,
No, not at all.
and you think of the times that it was and what they had to work with.
And trying to figure out who these people were.
So sad.
The fact that there are so many that they just didn't know. They
And
didn't have a way to know.
no, and you hear of it with people when they say, some people believe that if you die so instantaneously or so tragically that your spirit's kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like some
believe that you don't understand what's happened enough to move on.
right. I feel like the victims of the Titanic could have been in part of this because when you really look into it, and for any of our listeners, if you look into this, you see how the morticians and people taking care of the victims, they felt an uneasiness in those rooms. They felt like they weren't alone.
Right.
So, I mean,
even if this is your job and you're used to it, that many bodies under this kind of circumstance has to also play on your psyche a little bit.
to say overwhelming is an understatement,
Right.
I would think.
Exactly. And then you have the Halifax explosion and how many more bodies that was.
There was an aftershock.
Yeah.
Okay, so 800 meters in a radius is like half a mile.
Mm-hmm.
So everything within a half a mile, gone.
That's a
Gone.
big explosion.
One of the words I came across when doing this story was annihilated.
Oh.
Annihilated was a word that was used to describe it. It just took out every building. This aftershock was so huge, the explosion. And then the tsunami that came.
Yeah.
I mean, and that just
So you've
Took
got
out a
an
whole nother.
explosion, then a tsunami. Like,
It was just tragedy, tragedy, tragedy. And it happened in December. And there was a snowstorm, and trains were coming with as many as they could.
mm-hmm.
But because of the snowstorm, some of the help was delayed. And they had makeshift pop up mortuaries. There were bodies in the streets. I mean, you had these vessels that collided and exploded. You would still be finding pieces of these ships. It
Right?
was tragic.
Well, the fact that they were having upwards to 30 to 40 funerals a day.
The Snow family called in morticians. I want to say there was like 40 of them that they called in and said, help us.
Well, yeah, you would
Across
need help.
Halifax, they said, come help. And they did. The help came. They asked for help and it came. And it was just like unheard of.
Right.
I wasn't familiar with this story.
No.
And you read about it, such a prominent piece of this city.
Right.
And so, again, you have all that energy imprinting.
Mm-hmm.
If the spirits can't cross over,
Mm-hmm.
if they're still there, then it's just been going on and been
Right.
going on. And I couldn't find any stories previous to the Titanic tragedy.
That would have created a wave.
Yeah, like trying to research the land itself.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like with this building, the first tragedy was the Titanic.
Was the Titanic. You hear stories about old schools being turned into like boarding schools or orphanages or, all these things that it becomes down the road. But you had a school, a school for the arts, and then it became a funeral home just because of necessity. Like it wasn't at first a funeral home. They needed the space.
With the explosion, there were survivor stories that
Mm-hmm.
were told. There were these children that watched the explosion through windows,
Oh
and
God.
when those windows shattered, they blinded the children.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
This poor Canadian city. But now they have monuments to the Titanic. They recognize all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And they take pride, as they should, how you took care of everybody,
How the community came together
how
to
you
help.
came out strong, like
Mm-hmm.
that's resilience.
Absolutely.
Well done,
Yeah.
for being so resilient and being so strong and overcoming it. It couldn't have been easy.
No.
And now it's the restaurant.
And now it's a restaurant.
The restaurant is insanely sought after.
Mm.
Is a well-known restaurant. People go there like they want to, not for the paranormal. That seems
For
to
the
be like an
food.
extra.
Yeah.
Like that's the appetizer. You
Yeah.
got the gray man over here. Don't worry about him.
Don't worry about him as long as the food's
Ignore
good.
him. Someone may hit that swinging door. Don't you worry about that.
We have
Right?
great crab cakes here. Don't worry about that.
So good.
Ignore the flying dishes. It's okay.
It's good. If you see your silverware move, we'll get you some new ones.
Yeah, it's no big deal.
Don't let it wreck the atmosphere or the food. Like fine dining is how they have their stars, they have their reputation. Good for them, right?
That's awesome.
So very successful there.
I think we need to take a trip to Halifax eventually.
Yeah, it's also a well sought out spot. They do ghost walks. And it was on a TV show called Creepy Canada at one point. So there's that. When the history to a property is so detailed in both emotions of happiness and catastrophe, there's bound to be something that lingers. Most cities have buildings that hide its history. They're quiet and seem to blend into the landscape. Argyle Street, though, seems it has a building that always seemed to demand attention in some form. And maybe the strange bit is that everybody from a waitress, a server, the undertaker, it all seems to have the same feeling, the feeling of being watched, a feeling that even when there may only be one person, the atmosphere is one where the space seems filled with something or someone else. Like something or someone that perhaps refuses to be forgotten through time. And as always, thank you for listening to us today, and be sure to follow us on the platforms you listen to us on so you never miss an episode. Reviews, comments, and ratings really do help us reach more listeners. So until the peculiar calls for another tale, bye for now.